different type of champion. So, David?
Yes.
We gotta sort this out. And here's what I propose.
I like proposals.
I propose a championship challenge match.
A championship challenge? With who? With all of them? What are you talking about?
I don't know all the details. I'm gonna let you figure all that out.
All right.
Okay?
Fantastic. Championship challenge.
But honestly, I'm ready to start giving opportunities to other women here and to start being the champion that this company deserves.
Abilene Maverick scores the victory!
He's coming! And new world champion, Abilene Maverick!
That's what you get, dumbass.
You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
The World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion of the world.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Everybody wants the champion, or at least according to WOW. Hello, this is Mr. Green. This is the Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling Podcast, and your review for WOW, episode 66 or 214, whichever you prefer. One is chronological, one is by season. And the show title, as I just told you, Everybody Wants the Champion. I'm not really sure, in hindsight, why it was titled that. I don't know if I don't recall a bunch of people just chasing after the champion in this episode, or I need a title shot, I don't recall any of that, but you know, hey, I guess we'll discover as we go along. I guess I should start off with just saying this. There's not really a lot that's happening in this episode. The most is that they had their announcement, and I guess that was supposed to be the big deal of this, and we'll get to that as the show goes on. But yeah, it's not really all that much that's happening here, so I think we may have to break out a watch along just to kind of make this halfway interesting to some degree. But before we go to that, you know, I want to sidebar for a second because well, two things. One, my apologies for the late upload of the previous week's episode. That was episode 65. So I have to apologize for that not getting up. It was supposed to have been up before the show that I'm talking about now aired. It was supposed to, but for whatever reasons, my Adobe software just decided that it didn't want to cooperate, and every time that I tried to do it, it just crashed. So I had to go through, had to do what I did about a year ago and cleanse the system, delete a whole bunch of things, run for errors. I mean, just the whole 9 yards to get it back in place. And I realized a lot of times I cake up my system. I downloaded all the video that I'd have to use and the audio bites and stuff like that. And a lot of times I don't get rid of it, which I'm really terrible about. But I'll get better. I will get better. So for those of you that listened to that and heard the spoiler section, that was like, wait a minute, that already aired. Yeah, that's why. I'm sorry. So that was the first thing. The second thing, which really has nothing to do with women's wrestling specifically, I want to just prefaces that, is Dave Meltzer and Alvarez having a discussion about AEW and their Overrun. which I thought was just absolutely amusing. And if there was anything that could possibly be shown as a measure of, yeah, Dave Meltzer is either working for this company or he is too stuck up their backside, I'll say, for him to really justifiably criticize them or their decisions, this probably would be it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a section of audio on their show where they being Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer discussing, which kind of broke into a argument of sorts about the overrun of the show. Like, hey, look, two weeks in a row I've set my DVR to record this program, and 2 weeks in a row it cut off right at the main event. They need to do better about that. That was Alvarez's stance on the entire matter. Alvarez I agreed with. Dave Meltzer, on the other hand, was like, well, no, you know, it's like live sports, and they have to have over, and sometimes you just can't control that, and you do such and such, and you're just gonna have to set for the next hour to record. That's what I do when I record football and basketball and this, that, and blah blah blah. So, yeah, I just felt like, having actually worked live sports in TV, not hypothetically speaking, I just felt like I wanted to say something about that. And that, yes, I know Dave has been doing this thing a long time, far longer than I could, conceive. I'm not gonna say conceive, but far longer than I, in terms of podcasts or talking about wrestling and this, that, and the other. But he is absolutely wrong there. Absolutely. That is just, he's reaching. He's just trying to find some sort of excuse for people to give AEW a break in that regard. And no, they don't deserve that. They do not deserve that break. The reason being, because pro wrestling, by no one's metric inside of television, looks at it that way. It is not a sport in that it is an unpredictable time frame. It just isn't. And it doesn't matter how he tries to word it. It doesn't matter how he tries to rephrase it. It doesn't matter. Well, it's just like, no, it's not. It is not like MMA. It is not like basketball, football, soccer, none of those things. It is not. Alvarez said, hey, they should contact the network and try to get an overrun, like a 5-minute overrun or whatever. And that would be the sensible thing to do. Either that or time the show out better. And by that, sometimes things happen, but sometimes you have to cut and make decisions in a live broadcast. Now, granted, yeah, AEW is a live broadcast. So there is the potential of going beyond your time frame, but the network does not look at that in those ways. I don't know TBS's specific standards for how they deal with it. In CBS, we get conditions. And I'm going to say that most television stations that do that live do a similar thing. And what the conditions are, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, they give you these things, when the show begins, so that if it goes beyond its time frame, let's just say we're doing a football game, and they scheduled that game between 8 and 10. We'll say 8 and 10. The conditions would be that if this game ends on time, you're going to do pretty much nothing. You'll just go about your day as usual. Because if the game ends early, usually they will provide filler internally within within whoever is broadcasting out of the truck. They'll have somebody come out in the field. They'll interview the coach. They'll interview the players, just to buffer it out until it gets to its designated endpoint. They'll run recaps and all that good stuff. That's if it ends relatively on time or early. If it goes beyond that, that's when it starts to change everything else. If it ends between 10 and 10:30, for us it's every half hour. Ends between 10 and 10:30, 10:30 to 11, 11 to 11:30, so on and so forth. And what you wind up having to do is they have to tell you which shows we do not want you to touch. If the show comes on late, then the show comes on late. By and large, they will pick 2 or 3 shows that air somewhere around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning that they just cut into or get rid of altogether. And so by the time 4 o'clock rolls around, the time of the schedule will get itself back on track. Those are the conditions. That's how they use that. That's how it works. Wrestling doesn't fall into that category. Wrestling is perceived and presented like a more or less a normal TV show. Now they understand that it's live and things can happen and it can stretch beyond this or that, but they are expecting you to finish. The networks expect pro wrestling to be done because they understand that this is by and large a scripted thing. And there's no reason for you not to cut this off. There's no reason for you to act like, oh, well, this match is just going on forever. We don't know when it's going to end. No, that they don't expect that at all. Nor should they. It should not be expecting or waiting for like, oh, I can't wait for this match to be over with. Now, by the time it gets to the top of the hour, this should be wrapping up. So, no. And that's something that I would tell Dave Meltzer personally. No, that is not how this works. This does not fall into the same category as any other legitimate sport. I love pro wrestling. I love all of it, but it's not a sport in that context. I call it a sport, but it's not a sport in that the outcome is unpredictable. It is a predicted outcome, and sometimes, let's just call a spade here. Tony Khan is going to have to make some tough calls at some point and say, look, so-and-so went over, we got to lose this match. That happens. Or you got to cut it down on time. After hearing that whole thing, I am fully in the mindset that he either has a lot of friends that he doesn't want to upset, probably the Young Bucks. I mean, they named a move after him, the Meltzer driver. They probably have been super buddy. That goes a long way to the claims of he has a vested interest in AEW rather than anybody else. But yeah, now if you ever hear that, if you happen to come across it and you hear his argument of, well, no, they you just have to set your DVR or you have to work harder to get it or what? No, you should not have to work harder to get that. That is not a thing. And I'm telling you, I am publicly saying that to Dave Meltzer if he ever happens to come across this. I'm saying that as someone who is in TV. That is not a thing. They do not expect that. They don't want that. Wrestling isn't viewed that way. Wrestling isn't produced that way. Stop it. All right. Yeah, I just had to get that off my chest. Anyway, so we are going to go into the review of the episode. Top to bottom, this is pretty much what I say with a lot of the episodes. If you're looking at it just on the surface of the match, it's probably going to be fine for you. If you look at it anywhere beyond that, it will become questionable. But, we'll get into those questions as we move along. So it begins with a different face. That is the first really noticeable change that we have here. Apparently, Stephen Dickey either could not make it that day, had to go to his day job, was on vacation, whatever the reasons, he just wasn't there. So we got David McClain and we have Nigel Zane. I've explained in one of these earlier podcasts who Nigel Zane is. Somebody asked the question, hey, isn't that guy that was back in the Fabulous Moolah? Yes, that is him. Now, he doesn't really do that on this show. I know he mentioned the Fabulous Moolah's name, but he doesn't really go into the full-on endorsement of Moolah there, but it won't make a difference. I mean, there's not enough people there that care that Moolah was pimping other women out for them to try to cancel WOW over it or him. So That it is what it is. But anyway, that aside, I will say it was somewhat refreshing to have a different face on the show. Not only a different face, but a different voice. Now, his voice, when I say that, I don't mean in terms of opinion, but I do mean in terms of how he projects and how he talks rather than Stephen Dickey. I liked Stephen Dickey. I did. But as the weeks went on, it's like, I'm starting to realize that he is just an echo chamber for David McLean. He doesn't provide anything different. Now, Nigel Zane is not much different in that regard. He doesn't provide anything different than what David McLean does. He is somewhat of an echo chamber also. The difference there is that he projects better. He sounds better. He has a more authoritative voice on the mic than Stephen Dickey. If anything, it kind of pointed out the flaw that Stephen Dickey has. I mean, when I listen to them comparatively, Dickey almost sounds like a guy, like a fan that's trying to do commentary and not be loud but yell. And it's like a quiet yell. If that makes sense. If you've ever seen the other guys and you've seen the quiet fight, it's kind of like that. What are you guys doing? They're yelling, but not really. Like I want to project and sound like I'm yelling, but I don't want to be too loud doing it. That type of thing. So it's really strange when I heard it that way. It's like, wow, he does sound like that. But that is the change there. We got Nigel Zane on the microphone opposed to his colleague, Stephen Dickey. They start off the show, McLean and Zane. Ugh, that might be tough to say a couple of times. They recap the championship challenge match from the previous week. They show the highlights. And this is another case. I'm going to both praise the editors and probably condemn them at some point here. So just bear with me. But this is one of the points where I'm going to praise them because they did the match highlights and they edited to make Abilene Maverick look like a bigger deal. If you watched this without seeing the previous week, it would come across like, oh man, wow, they had a star come back. They positioned this as if, oh yeah, she was a big deal, or it was a surprise of some sort. Which, if you listen to the last week, this was no surprise. This was a crowd goes mild moment at best. And it was, more or less recapping what I said last episode, but it was more or less just a case of if you weren't the hardest of the hardcore fan of WoW, you would not have known who this person was. This was not a big deal. This was not some sort of uber surprise that anybody could get excited for. This was nothing. Her return was nothing. They edited it to make it look like a bigger deal, but the reality of it was pretty much nothing. You want to see a return that works and, I shouldn't even say a return, a surprise entrant or something like that works and gets people excited or something like that. Go look at Slammiversary 2021, I think. It's Deonna Purrazzo and a mystery opponent. And the second they had Thunder Rosa's name pop up on the screen, it's like, oh, wow. And because Thunder Rosa had been seen several places, including WoW. I'll give them that much credit, even though I don't think that played into how that audience reacted. But she had been everywhere. She had been, on AEW television by that point, Lucha Underground. Like as I said, she's been on WoW as Serpentine. And she, on the indies, had become a big name and a major deal. So that for that audience, it was a big thing. It was like, I cannot believe Thunder Rosa is going to challenge for the championship. That is a surprise entrant or return or whatever, how you choose to phrase it. That is a surprise. Abilene Maverick was just a name out of the WoW playbook who really didn't have any more status than anyone else, and she hadn't done anything during the time that she was gone to warrant a big surprise. They just pushed this so hard that it was overblown for me. It was very much overblown. But again, the editors did a good job. This also set up the main event for the show. The Beast versus Abilene Maverick. And the main event. The first thing I thought was, if the Beast was going to get an immediate title shot without having to do anything to earn it, why was she in the championship challenge match at all? That was my absolute first thought. I'm not saying that they couldn't have this main event, but it just, like, it's a week later. And WoW and David McClain are very inconsistent about who gets title shots and when and where and how. Like, the idea that Jessie Jones, who, and we have to go into her story during this show also, but the idea that Jessie Jones, who had been undefeated for the better portion of, let's just say, 3 years, we'll count it back to the Access years, which actually would be beyond 3 years, really. But she had been undefeated. Why would she have to qualify? Right? When everybody else got in just based on their name. Tormenta, well, she was a Mexican champion. The Beast, well, she was a former champion. Penelope Pink, she was a former champion. All of them got in just based on who they were. But Jessie Jones didn't. He's really inconsistent with that. And then you have this main event where the Beast and Abilene Maverick, or I should say the Beast gets an immediate title shot. It also should be pointed out that this main event was absolutely spoiled the previous week. Not only the main event, but who won the match. And that was just poor quality control by WoW. This is a fine setup. No, nothing to go into there. But we go into the first match. I don't know what's happening with Kandy Krush right now. I mean, I know they positioned her, as, in their words, as the gatekeeper for everybody that's going into WoW or coming, joining the fray, however you want to look at it. But she has really just been spinning her wheels there. She's not doing much of anything. And this is one of those moments where it makes me think back to this so emotional moment that David McClain had with her. I'm going to get the title shot. And he breaks out into tears, and so does she. And it went nowhere past that. She had the match, and then that was it. No rematch, no chasing for the championship, nothing. She hadn't even brought it up. It's just been, well, I had my shot. Oh, well. And she just kind of moved on. In a perfect booking environment, she would have made more sense than Abilene Maverick, quite honestly. It would have made a lot more sense just considering that she had a championship match that she never got a rematch for. Princess Aussie pretty much took her heat because Aussie came in and, that the whole feud transferred from Krush to Aussie. It would have made a lot more sense. The more that I'm thinking about it, that Kandy Krush should have been the surprise, a wild card, and won. And then you could have paid off the blow-offs that Princess Aussie allegedly was doing to Kandy Krush in the infamous WoW stairwell that she did 2 or 3 times. That could have gone somewhere. She could have, been. She didn't necessarily have to go full on heel. It probably would have made more sense in the WoW universe because they don't really have an anti-hero. But she could have, not apologized for it. Like, hey, look, I never got my title match either. And that could have led off into something. You could have gotten a match with Kandy Krush and Princess. All of these things could have taken place. And it would have made so much more sense. But, we don't worry about the sensible with WoW. We just kind of take it for what it is. So that is my view on Kandy Krush and what could have happened with the main event, but let's go into what actually happened. We can't go into Fantasyland, right? Too much longer. We got to go into what actually took place. And what actually took place was Exodus of Exile in a singles match against Kandy Krush. It should be noted, the Exodus comes out alone. And I also have to bring up, I think I said it before, but it's worth repeating now, especially, that I was sent the link of Exodus outside of WoW taking on Thunder Rosa. Bring this back around to what I said earlier. And they had a match. I'm positive I talked about this now, but I'll repeat because of seeing these two things relatively close together, it makes me feel like, I wish that she would be a little bit more careful here with her matches. And that by her, I mean Exodus. She had like two kind of big botches between these two matches. One in the match with Thunder Rosa, where she pretty much smacked her head on the canvas, busting her mouth. She was bleeding out of her mouth later on. And here she took a bulldog the wrong way. But rather than to go through that, let's do a bit of a watch along here, shall we? So I am going to set up this video for myself right now. And if you so desire, you can join me in watching this match as we talk about it. Because like I said, there's not a lot going on here. So I have this right now at 0-0-0. And I am going to count this in. And when I say play, hit the play button. This is giving you some time to get past the whatever ads YouTube may be deciding to throw into your video here. But when I count down from 5 and we get to that, and I say play, hit the play button, and we should be synced up from that point. All right? And if you're at all zeros, you should be seeing the wow circle, the thing that they do when their transition video. You should be seeing that. So I'm getting ready, and I'm getting ready to start. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play. So we see match 1 coming up, and Lauren in her nice ball gown introducing the match. And one of the things I hope that she stops doing, Lauren, is the non-generic trying to get the fans saying one fall all the time. I mean, they do it, but that was the thing that started out on the indies, and it happened generically. It just took place organically, I should say. It happened organically. It wasn't like somebody was prodding them into doing it. But I know they do this because it's a TV crowd. But anyway, Exodus coming out to the ring with a bow staff. KZT for those that see her on the independents. And I like her. I still maintain that I like that team. I like Exile, and I do not like that they seem like they're breaking this thing up. Although, because of the announcement that they have later on in the show, they may save it. Who knows? It's interesting to me that she has brought this bow staff out along with her partner Genesis. She brings out nunchucks. Exodus brings out a bow staff, and not once has that ever come into play in the match. As like, okay, I'm going to use this thing to cheat to win. Not once. It's fascinating to me. It's like, you got this gimmick. Why hasn't the gimmick been used at all? So now I'm seeing Candace, she's hugging somebody right now. The same lady that comes out every show, every taping. And Krush has won me over largely because they do not have her acting anymore. And she seems like she's improving. She's one of those people that I think, I'd like to see her someplace else just to see what she has in her. But let's get to the match. They've already locked up, and we got a wrist lock happening there with Exodus. Reversal by Krush. And what you're going to see at some point is a jump cut. And it might be right here. There's some back. There you go. Right there. That was a big jump cut. That is what I was going to get on the editors about. It was just like, this is happening, then bam, it goes off into something else. And it's not like he needed a trained eye to see that either. Somebody who doesn't watch wrestling much at all was looking at it. It's like, hey, what just happened here? That was the first thing that he said out of his mouth. It's like, was that a bad cut? So yeah, the edit, that should not have ever made air. I understand that those things happen because, sometimes you're in a rush or whatnot, but if you're considering that this has weeks of time, they should have gone back through that. Rear waist lock by Krush, short arm clothesline, drives exits down, hooks the leg one, and she's out of it. Yeah, that was bad. That was a bad thing right there. And now you can see them communicating, taking a little bit too much time there. Knee lift into the gut. Sends Krush in, got her in the kitchen sink, is what we used to call it. It was a nice kick by Exodus into her guts again. And like I said, it's not a bad match. But there's points where it got a little rough. Like I said, there was a little bit of a stall between them, and you could tell that they were clearly communicating with each other. And then the jump cut didn't help their match any. Exodus drives her head first into the top turnbuckle, pushing her hands into her. Like I assume that's supposed to be a choke in the corner, but it's not really a choke. She's just kind of pushing her up. Exodus takes her out to the center. Nice suplex and nice snap on it. That was great execution there. And then she kicks out. Krush has largely worked from underneath in these matches that she's had. Even though they seem like they try their best to have these, kind of back and forth contests. That right there, that's another one of those things like it's taking just a bit too long. That reversal that Krush just did, nice block by Exodus. Put her down in the STO. Referee comes over, gets the count. Nope. And keep in mind, this is a cold match. There's really nothing going on here beyond that it's just a match, which is largely the theme of this show. And I had to say that I thought Nigel Zane did a good job on the play-by-play. I disagree with his opinions about the Fabulous Moolah. But, he did a good job here. They're going to need a clothesline by Exodus, and Krush comes back with a clothesline of her own. She tried a discus forearm, but that kind of grazed it. But the editors did save it. Now, that was what I was talking about. That was a bad landing on Exodus there, where she sat out for the Bulldog rather than pancaking herself flat on her stomach. She's going to have to watch out for that. Now, I can't get on her because, again, wrestling is live, and, you got a couple of seconds to make that decision on what you're doing. And she might have got the communication mixed up. That may have happened. Backstabber out of the corner. But the only thing I can say is, just be careful out there because that could have been nasty if Krush had really hooked her in and compressed her spine while she was sitting down on that Bulldog. And I tried to go for a mafia kick, looks like. Pops her up, catches her with the fist, hoists her up on her shoulders as Krush. A lot of these are just a showcase for Kandy Krush. The elbows look like she's going in, hooked her in, kind of a loose dragon sleeper there, or in position for it. When it was the leg that's used, we called it the final cut, but, who knows what WoW refers to that as. Nice knee lifts or knee lift. And Krush goes into this pretty smoothly. She goes into that Olympic slam. I forget what they call it, lights out. And there you go. Match is over with. Pretty much like every other WoW match. Just, it was short, sweet. It was entertaining, but we really don't go beyond like 5 minutes or whatever the case may be. And that was that. Nice, but what can I really say here? Cold match. entertaining to watch. Don't know where they're going with the Exodus, Exile, Genesis. I don't know where they're going with that, but I guess time will tell. The next segment, Jessie Jones and Americana. We all saw this coming. This is Americana coming to what is supposed to be their locker room, knocking on the door, and Jessie essentially doesn't want to see her, and really rightfully so. So, like, if you embarrassed me, you humiliated me, the one thing that I thought they left out here is that she didn't harp on, you took away my undefeated streak. You caused that. Now, of course, it was still important that she had a title opportunity in front of her that her alleged friend and partner screwed up. So, although she did not mention what I felt was just as important in this, the undefeated streak, she projects with so much passion and fire that it still works. Jessie Jones may be the best thing that WoW has. Overall, she may legitimately be the best thing on WoW TV. I know that by trade she's not an actress, but she presents so much better, especially when she's standing there next to Americana. Americana just, I want to like her, but or like her as a wrestler, but it's just, this makes it so hard. And it's like they refuse to admit that she is not fully ready for this. They just will not let this go. So anyway, and then I also have to point out that this segment alone was posted 5 days before the show aired. All these segments that I'm about to talk about throughout the course of this, they all posted 5 days prior to, 4 days prior to the show going on the air. So if you were looking at this and expecting it just to be the previous week's show and not get any spoilers, you were in for a shock. That this spoiled whatever it was that Jessie Jones and Americana was going through. You can see the entire thing before the show ever broadcast. I do not know if that was a mistake. I do know that WoW does not typically do that. Normally they don't. They don't just like, oh man, let's just put this stuff up. And if you catch it, you catch it. Usually it comes on days after the fact. Like when the episode airs on Saturday, I expect to start seeing clips of the show sometimes late Sunday and Monday. Definitely by Monday. I start seeing it by then. But what I've never seen them do is take anything out of the show and air it days ahead of time. So I'm just going to go off of the assumption, and I will openly say it is my assumption. I'm not saying this is a fact. I think that this was just an error on somebody's part. Whoever did the social media that day, whoever was in charge of the uploads for YouTube, just started uploading things before it was necessary. So you have that. The next thing, or the next segment, was Miami Sweet Heat versus Tiki Chamorro and Chella. This is another cold match. This is everything that you expect it to be. I wrote down playing the part of Foxy Fierce would be Tiki Chamorro. And this is exactly that. Chella gets another jobber partner to go into this match with, and there is no shock or surprise who won this. The match's outcome isn't in doubt at all. And a good chunk of this, the commentators spent talking about the main event and the Beast. And as they were talking about that, I started thinking, whatever happened to the angle with the Beast and Sophia Lopez? Yes, I realize I'm completely ignoring this match, but it just hit me as they were talking. It's like, whatever happened to that angle? Whatever happened to the Beast and Sophia Lopez when she showed up in the bowels of the building with the flash drive, hands it to the Beast, and says, you owe me one. That's been like weeks ago. And if anything, why would she have cashed that in on the Beast when she needed it with the Miami Sweet Heat? That would have been the time to do it. And it would have gotten her, more heat for her and her team and possibly a win. But I have lost all faith in Sophia Lopez, Tormenta, and Los Banditas. That's off track, but we'll get to that. There's a portion in this tag. I mean, the match is fine. It's you've got at least 3 out of the 4 people who work beyond WoW. I'm not saying that Miami Sweet Heat is a perfect team, but they are, probably better than most of them there. But there are, or at least there was, a portion in this match where the move was completely telegraphed. And I don't blame the team for that. I'm just going to say I do not blame the team for that. What I do blame is the camera angle, because they took the wide aerial shot, and it showed, I can't never, Blondie, we'll just call her that, because I could never get to Lindsay and Laurie, but, I think it was Laurie. She's standing there in the middle of the ring. Tika Chamorro goes to the ropes. Laurie gets to the center, and she holds her arms in such a way that that when Chamorro gets to her, I am going to do a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker or a tilt-a-whirl side slam, one of the two. And lo and behold, this is exactly what happened. I think it was Chamorro. Was it? No, I wrote down Chella. So, yeah, you have that. Then there was a kind of a botch on the pin attempt where Lindsay kicks out of the pin. Laura was coming over to do the save, but the kick out happened, so she had to kind of readjust and nail to Chamorro, I believe it was Chamorro, and hit her even though she was not on her sister any longer. Again, I don't blame that. That's just one of those things that happen. Sometimes, as stated earlier, the communication just gets a little wacky, and things happen. There was also a point where Lindsay kind of had to position herself on the ropes. She gets knocked down in what was supposed to have been landing on the second rope, and she clearly has to force herself into position so she could take the 619 or whatever they call it. Same rules apply there. Things happen. You don't want too many of those things happening in succession, but things happen. There's nothing here. I mean, the match it's a showcase for Sweet Heat, and they win with their fab jab, which is the flying elbow back suplex combo. It looked fine. I was good with it. I didn't care that they won because Chella and Chamorro have never been teamed up to the point that they've been presented as anything worth winning. I think they teamed up before, but it certainly isn't worth keeping in mind because where they are in this. Where they're supposed to be. They are the team that puts over the other teams. That's their job. And when Foxy Fierce inevitably returns, she'll just slide herself right back into that and be the person that jobs out the other people. Not a bad thing. That's just her role. After the match, Miami Sweet Heat cut a promo essentially saying they should be on top. This is probably the only downside I have. Like they talk with a lot of fire. They talk with a lot of purpose, but they don't have any declaration. We're coming back after you, the Tonga Twins. They want the tag team titles, and we're on top, and we're the best team. We're the main event. It's just words. There's no, this is what we're going to do, or give us this. It is the same promo that almost everyone else on this show does, whether they do anything about it or not. We've heard this from Exile before they had their problems. We heard this out of Gambino. We've heard this out of Jessie Jones. We've heard this out of Los Banditas and Sophia Lopez. We've heard this practically out of everyone on the roster in some way, shape, form, or another that I want to be the champion and we're the best and blah, blah, blah. There's very little time or few times where the WoW superheroes have a declaration of this is what I am going to do, and I'm going to do it to this person. There's nothing specific. It is almost always vague. It sounds good because they project with a lot of, like I say, conviction. But that's what you do when you're trying to answer without answering. You know, these are the things. These are tricks that happen in public speaking sometimes. I don't want to rope in politics, but it happens with political figures a lot. They get asked a question and they just go rambling off on something. You know, it's a better one, Tony Khan. He's probably just as good with that. He'll get asked a direct question, then the next thing you know, he starts talking with conviction about how good AEW is, how great everything is. We just did this. We broke records, and he'll completely wrap himself around whatever the topic may be. Now, of course, Miami Sweet Heat wasn't asked a question. Neither was Lana Starr. But it's like I said, it's the same rules they apply in that we have something to say. And then they'll say it, but there's not any real substance to what's been said beyond the standard, we're the best, and we should be the champions. We've had the titles twice, and but I will give credit where it's due in this regard. This is the closest that we probably get to a promo that suits who they are. If WoW had year-end awards, Miami Sweet Heat probably deserves it. Just in a kayfabe universe. They probably would deserve Tag Team of the Year. They've been in more main events than anybody, single or tag, throughout the entire year 2023. And they probably have had better matches, all due respect to the Tonga Twins, than they have had overall. If I was giving out awards for it, I would probably hand it to them. The next segment is a follow-up with Jessie Jones and the return of Amber O'Neal. This is both good and bad. The good, Amber O'Neal comes back. I didn't have a problem with Amber O'Neal coming back, and I didn't have a problem in the same vein that I did with Abilene Maverick, because Abilene came out as some sort of advertised surprise, where it's like, who's going to be the wild card? So there was a certain amount of anticipation to that. And it was presented as if it was some sort of big deal, which it wasn't. And it happened in front of the audience, which they didn't know who she was. But with Amber, in a backstage segment, somebody who's been on the show more recently than Abilene Maverick, this was fine. It worked because, again, it wasn't like, we got a special surprise for you fans. You'll never guess. It wasn't built up like it was supposed to be some sort of huge thing. So her coming back, I really didn't have any gripe with, didn't have any sort of issues with in terms of that. But here is where I hated it. Amber does her job here. Both Amber and Jessie Jones do their job. Let's just go ahead and clear the air with that. They both do what they're supposed to do. Amber comes in as I can't believe you let this happen. You let this rookie and a kid turn you soft and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's what it needed to be. Jessie Jones reacting before she even knew who it was. It's like, I told you to get out of my locker room. Then she looks up like, oh, Amber, So all of those things worked in my view. What didn't work is David McClain talking over this thing. Like, what purpose did he have in doing that? If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go back and watch the segment. He is talking over this, not the entirety of it, but he's talking over it. And it's just ridiculous that he's doing that. I get the fact that he's trying to explain it. You know, I understand that that's what he's attempting to do. He's like, oh, it's Amber O'Neal. She's returned to WoW. They used to be friends and part of. But he's saying all of this while Amber O'Neal is talking. He's been in TV for 30-something years. How on earth he could assume that that is acceptable is beyond me. That is ridiculous and amateurish. And it would have been different if he had just said one thing and just let it breathe, but he kept going. Everything he said could have been saved for a follow-up segment. It could have been saved for, as soon as that cut, go right to the commentator's table and recap what we just saw. I can't believe that Amber O'Neal just came back. We haven't seen her since, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Rather than trying to cram all of that into this segment all at once. Why would you do that? It is just, I see people who do things on YouTube who do it better than this. It's shot well. They performed it well, but then you had this knucklehead on the microphone over talking them all. It makes it difficult to understand when you're trying to focus on what Amber's saying, hearing his raspy voice behind it. So I don't know. And he has a problem with that. He doesn't let the scene breathe. Let the scene breathe, bro. Let it breathe. Let them tell the story and then you recap it. Where is Jeannie Buss? Where does she even watch this show? I can't imagine being the owner of this and then seeing that segment. Like, what the hell are you doing? Shut up. Let them do what they're doing. Like, this should be one of those points where the owner should step in and like, look, I know this is your project, but don't talk over the talent. Don't talk over the talent unless it's just absolutely necessary. Let that go. Anyhow, this a pet peeve of mine. We go to the next segment, which is the next match, and it is Fury versus Princess Aussie. This is the third in the line of the show where it's just another cold match that has nothing leading into it and really nothing coming off of it. Not in relation to, the match itself. This is essentially a babyface versus babyface match, and there's no stakes here. It's just a match for the sake of a match. It's just filling up time. And the commentators are really, really, really trying to justify Princess Aussie and the decisions that she made in initiating this championship challenge match, which if you have to go through all of this to try and make her sound like she made a sound decision, then something's wrong. She's a giving champion. She never felt like she got opportunity, yada, yada, yada. The same thing that led into this. But at the same time, she has been presented as somebody who just ridiculously and absurdly decided that I'm just going to take on 4 people at one time. And the reward for me coming up with this championship challenge match is that I get to go out number 1. I get to be first in a match that I have to do no less than 10 minutes, which, again, WoW is notorious for these short matches. It probably should have been a longer match to try to get it over. I said that last week, previous podcast. But this was not It didn't convince me. I'll put it away. I'm not going to say it wasn't good. I understood what they was trying to do, but it didn't convince me. I cannot see many people, adults at least, looking at her as if, I got sympathy for you. This only kind of reinforced in my mind the inconsistencies of WoW in terms of who gets title shots and why and all that good stuff. The match, fine. It was a fine match. These are two pros in here. But as stated earlier, not really anything behind this. There's really no doubt in who was going to win it either. And going back to what I said earlier, Fury, she was another person who cut a promo about winning the championship that probably is never going to get it. Because it's just audio filler. We need you to do a promo that doesn't relate to anything or anyone. You know, saying that I want to be the champion is probably the safest thing that any one of them can say on any given episode, and it'll work. We can slot this into any show because it's an evergreen statement. But anyhow, the match ends exactly the way you thought it was going to end. Fury gets caught with a cutter, and then she gets caught with a frog splash. 1, 2, 3 is over with. There's no point in even going into the play-by-play of that. So at the end of this, Princess Aussie cuts a promo after the match. Now, this promo was more specific, and I was really shocked that it was. What I didn't like is her crying about her loss. She talks about Abilene Maverick getting what she didn't. I got the confetti and I got to raise my hand and had the championship. Only I didn't. I was like, okay. In my mind, okay, she didn't have the confetti. She got her hand raised and she was praised and all that other stuff, but she didn't get the showcase that Abilene Maverick got, because Abilene Maverick won it, for better or worse. She won the championship challenge match, which probably deserves confetti. This is the first time we're having it. It made sense. I'll give WoW this much credit. The confetti at the end of that match made sense because, this is a first-time event. It was supposed to be a big deal. It wasn't. But in their universe, it was supposed to be a big deal. Like, hey, I won the first ever championship challenge. But I find myself having a hard time sympathizing with Princess Aussie when she is the one that initiated this thing. I offer you the suggestion of a championship match, but I don't know who's in it or how it's going to operate. And as I said, the reward for my efforts in coming up with this is that I get to go into it first and have to deal with everybody. And she's standing there crying about, I don't feel like a champion anymore, probably because you're not. This was an overcome adversity promo. That's basically all this is. This is I got knocked down. My feelings are hurt. I'm sad, but I'll keep fighting for all of you fans. It's one of those. It was performed well, but not really that much to it. And the next note that I had is, why didn't Aussie get a rematch? It keeps coming back around to inconsistencies of WoW. Why is it that the Beast gets an immediate title shot, having competed and lost in this championship challenge match, when the champion herself lost, was pinned, and saw no return in sight? Why wasn't this her? Why didn't she get to the main event? Like, hey, especially the way that they went out there, they're like, well, you cheated. You stole is what he said. He didn't say cheated. So I want to make sure I got that right. But You stole the championship. So why wouldn't you start off the shows like, just Princess Aussie deserves a rematch. She's getting a rematch tonight or whatever. Inconsistent. But we'll see if she gets a shot later on. It would be hilarious to me if she never gets another title shot. I shouldn't laugh at that. But yeah, it would just be hilarious to me if she never saw another title match after this stupid moment of, I got a title. I got an idea, David. I want to take on everybody. I want to fight the world. I'm like, well, you got what you asked for. You lost. So there's no sympathy here from me. So, yeah. Performed well in the promo, but the promo really didn't do anything or go anywhere. There's not that much to it. It's overcome adversity. The only thing that was missing is kids, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and you too can win and overcome the odds if you stick to it and blah, 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 blah. The next segment was the unveiling of the Wild Trios Championship Tournament. They are announcing another tournament. I immediately tuned right out when I saw this. And it's not because of the trophy. I have advocated for a while to have some secondary thing that they could go after, the people that aren't doing anything. But in my view, it should not have been another tag team tournament of any sort. They didn't really do the first tag team tournament well, so why do this one? And I already know I feel it in my bones. In my bones, I tell you. But I can already feel where this is going. They're going to announce this tournament, and they're just going to have people randomly pop up without showing any sort of brackets. I mean, I would be shocked. I'll be pleasantly surprised, actually, if they show brackets for the tournament and stick to it. But what I expect is for them to have match after match after match of 6 women tags, trios matches, and not show you who's up against who so they can reslot people when necessary, which is what happened in the tag team tournament. They just kind of reslotted people when they needed to do it because there was no brackets there to show that they couldn't. The announcement was nice. Nigel does a nice job in presenting it. The trophy, I like that they have that. So I'm assuming that this is a somewhat of an annual thing rather than a defensible championship. I still would have preferred this to be like a singular thing because some of those people need something to go after. Your Keita Rushes, your Kandy Krush, your Slays, your Foxy Fierces, Fury, you name it. Anybody that's not tied up into that main event mix needs something else to do. And I also expect either a hodgepodge of teams to be thrown together or the few teams and factions that exist there to, go forward. If I were going to make any sort of assumption, without having seen anybody that's in this, Miami Sweet Heat and Penelope Pink would be my number one pick to win the tournament, just because I think that's who David McClain has a fixation on, and they have to win everything. Who should win, and it should have happened before they got to Miami Sweet Heat, it should have been Lopez leading Tormenta and Las Banditas. That would have been fine for them, especially, considering it's Los Angeles. The trios matches happen there a little bit more frequently than, most other regions in the wrestling sphere. I don't know why they would name it that rather than the 6-person championship, but again, trios is the fashionable title for it now, largely because of AEW. I'm not even sure that they use their own trios thing all that much. If not them, who else is there that could actually form a team and team spirit? That'd be my number. If I had 3 picks here, My number one pick is going to be Miami Sweet Heat and Penelope Pink and or Vicky Lynn. My number two pick, Team Spirit, whichever incarnation that happens to be. I forget the new person's names, but they're all cheerleaders, along with Ariel Sky, so I can see that. The long shot pick is going to be Banditas and Tormenta. I mean, that's a long shot. Exile, I'm not even sure is going to be a team, so I will go with the three that I just said. The segment came off fine. Like I said, not presented it well. I would prefer something different. I don't like wild tournaments. I don't think they do them good, but as a presentation, the segment is good. We go to what is the best portion of this show. The thread of Jessie Jones throughout the program. This is the best thing that happened on the program, in my opinion. It was the one thing that kind of kept the show together. So Jessie Jones with Amber O'Neal go to attack Americana in her locker room. There's really no other way to phrase that. And they actually acknowledged the cameraman. This was not an invisible eye this time. So I guess it should be stated that at the end of Jessie Jones being confronted, for lack of a better term, by Amber O'Neal, her former tag partner and current tag partner on the Indies now. They used to go by Grits and Glam. Now I think they go by Bullets and Bourbon. So after that, Amber gives her Make Wrestling Great Again hat, which in that audience is probably really going to get her some heat because, if she starts doing the same things that she's been doing, wearing Donald Trump socks and stuff like that, yeah, I can see that that's probably going to get her some heat in that audience. I would really suggest that WOW steer away from the political humor or the political implications on their show. It's their program, but I would keep all of that neutral because it's not going to play everywhere the same. It just isn't, so you should probably minimize that. And then it was fashionable at the time. I'm going to make wrestling great again. What does that even mean? But she did it at the time because it was a fashionable thing and it was in vogue because Trump was in office and I'm going to make America great, that whole nonsense. But here that's such a heated topic and so polarizing. Like, of all the things that they choose to go in on, they would do that. I would steer clear of that if it were me. But, it's their show. I just watch it and review it. So, this is Jessie Jones going in to attack Americana. Like I said, the previous segment with these two set this up. When she gets the hat back and Amber's essentially saying, well, what are you going to do about it? And she's like, I'll tell you what I'm going to do about it. So, this is the result. So she charges in. She sees Americana, who her reactions are just priceless at times. They are. They're just priceless. Like, Jessie, who's this? She is so emotionless through a lot of these things. But Jessie, gives her that kind of point in the chest, like, don't worry about her. This is between you and me. And then she takes her head and smashes it against the locker, only not really. And you can really tell that she didn't do it. She didn't take it all that well, but, hey, it is what it is. She gets her down and then she starts beating up on her. And that is when Amber turns and she addresses the camera. Like I said, this isn't an invisible eye, and I was shocked. And she walks him out. She's like, okay, that's enough. You got to get out here. And, you've seen all you should see. And then she puts the cameraman out and closes the door, which was surprising to me. Like I said, in most cases, The camera is an invisible eye in WoW's universe. It's not an actual camera. It just happens to be, we can mystically see what's going on in WoW's universe. So that's how that comes across. I did skip one segment, and I forgot, or I didn't see my note here, I should say. And it's the note of Abilene Maverick's video package. And this is to reintroduce who she is to the audience, and this more or less sets her up as being the mean girl. They took all the clips of things that she's done over, and these are clips from like 5 and 6 years ago. Her pouring tea over Steffi Slays at her house. That was an angle that really didn't go far. Her hitting a crutch over the back of somebody, yanking somebody off the apron, cake in the face, just stuff like that. This is probably as good of a job as they could do, considering that she doesn't have a real angle or match in WoW to stand on to say she did this or she did that, and she's been in the main event and she took on so-and-so and she beat this person and she defeated that person. There's not really much in her history that shows this. So they showed you what they could. Her taking on the people that you expected to take on. Now, they didn't show her winning anything. They just showed her abusing people. Which, as a heel, is fine. It's fine that she has that. It's fine that they showed that. It's just that she doesn't have much else to be shown. This is Abilene Maverick, folks. And, we're putting this off like it was a great pick for her to come back. But then they show all of this stuff where she's just horrible to everyone in the locker room. It was fine, I guess. It's like there's not really much that we can put behind that. It was okay for what it was, and it served its purposes. Just reintroducing Abilene Maverick to the WoW audience, or introducing her straight up, because I'm sure there's a lot of people there that didn't watch it and don't know who she is. So we can move on from that. And of course, they set up for the main event. Speaking of the main event, we go to the Beast versus Abilene Maverick. We will not question how the Beast got her championship shot, other than that she's just the Beast and she gets a championship shot. I wrote as this was broadcasting, when I looked at the time, I said, okay, this match is destined to be short. And it was. It was destined to be short. I don't think this match probably went beyond 4 minutes. Maybe. 4.5, possibly, somewhere in there. The commentators do a massive hype job for this. Like, this is a big deal, I know that's the job of the commentator. You got to hype the match. You have to hype the match. But my only drawback and the only flaw that I would say that I feel exists in them hyping the match up is that Abilene Maverick, despite the fact that they gave this promo package, has no resume in WoW's current climate to get anyone excited about this. Sorry. I had to take a little drink there. But anyway, yeah, there's nothing that she's done that would get anyone excited about this match. She doesn't have some sort of long-standing win-loss record or a string of victories underneath it. Put it this way, if Jessie Jones had been in the match, let's say the championship challenge match, and she won, she would have still been undefeated, right? And if they said, okay, well, now we're going to give it to the person that's next up in line, and that is the Beast, that would be worth getting excited about, because you would have had two major forces colliding. Abilene Maverick, I'm not Abilene Maverick, but Jessie Jones, who have been undefeated, and the Beast, who has been presented as unstoppable. Who's going to win? That's a matchup. This was just filler. Yes, Abilene Maverick is a good wrestler. Barbie Hayden, formerly. She's a good wrestler. She just didn't have the cachet in her wrestling background for this to mean anything. And what exactly does the governor's daughter mean? I mean, it comes off to me like another one of those things that David McLean just likes to do or likes the sound of, like, you'll be the governor's daughter. Well, what does that mean exactly? How does that play into anyone's character or persona? You never hear her even talk about her father, and I air quote father here. I didn't see it when I was watching the show back then. I certainly haven't seen it now. Like, my daddy bought me this or my daddy got me. I mean, it would make more sense to me if something like that would happen. Jim Cornette came off more like, the mama's boy because he constantly brought her up back in those days. A fine to me is nothing more than a phone call home to mama. Mom's got money and she'll pay any fine that you levied out. I don't care about no fine. Mama will take care of that. Mama Cornette handles that. It would lend itself into Abilene Maverick if she did something along those lines. My daddy is the governor of the state of Texas or wherever she's supposed to be from. And he'll take care of such and such and, whatever fines. You see what I'm saying? It's just a title, and it's a title that has no bearing. Like, what about her being the governor's daughter is significant other than it's just a name? So anyhow, the commentators are trying to convince the audience that Aussie was robbed of this moment. I don't understand how that could be when the rules of the match was that it's every person for themselves, and it's not like Abilene Maverick cheated. It's not like she used a chair or I don't know, handcuffs or something that you could point at and be like, well, she just got an unfair advantage. It's not her. If I'm going to play the heel announcer here, it's not her fault that she got the wild card position. That's Dave McClain's fault. It's not her fault that she was brought back in a multi-person match where she was just able to push somebody off and then steal the pin. None of those things are her fault. That's the way the rules are structured, and it's not her fault that that match is that way. She didn't make the match. Dave McClain did. She didn't even suggest the match. Princess Aussie did. So I do not understand what the commentators are trying to convince the audience of without having some sort of visual proof that this occurred. It would have been a different thing if she had come out there and she had something that gave her an absolute unfair advantage. Spraying people in the face with mace. Handcuffing somebody to the post so they can't get in to make the save. Using rope or something to tie their legs to where they can't kick out anything. But as this is just complaining for I shouldn't say complaining. It's just them trying to steer their audience into a direction to agree, and you have to like the baby faces and you have to hate the heels, which is what they should do. But this is not a good way to go about doing it. Abilene Maverick in this universe really didn't do anything wrong. Is she arrogant? Yes. Is she narcissistic? Absolutely. Was she annoying on the microphone despite the fact that she didn't say all that much? Totally. But she didn't cheat. All of those other things could be true, but she did not cheat. So the thing that I wrote when they start saying, Aussie was robbed at this moment. Abilene Maverick came out of nowhere and she got the confetti and she got the championship, but this, that, and the other. The thing I wrote after that was, whose fault is that? Princess Aussie's fault. She put herself in that position, not Abilene Maverick. Abilene Maverick wasn't even there. But getting into the match, Abilene Maverick was speared by the Beast early in the match. Now, normally when she delivers a spear and the person takes it, they usually are down for the count. In this case, I guess he could let that slide because it happened early, and Maverick just kind of rolled out to the floor to prevent being pinned. Like I said, this match is probably bell to bell at least. This match is probably all of 4 or 5 minutes long. It is super short. Also, not the way that I would reintroduce Abilene Maverick or my new champion by having her have a subpar title defense. I mean, even if she had to cheat to win, she should have won. But that didn't happen. Maverick works on the leg of the Beast at some point in the match. You know, once she gets out to the floor and she takes her breather. This match is set up essentially as the Beast being an unstoppable powerhouse and Maverick trying to overcome that. Even when she's selling the spear on the outside, it doesn't look like she was. It almost looked like she's playing it up like, oh yeah, I got to take a time out, and my neck, I gotta twist it and pop it back into place, and so she. It's not like the spear, like, oh my God, my guts are on fire because of that. That kind of thing. And in fact, by the time the Beast comes out to the floor, the effects of the spear are long gone. Maverick is moving around perfectly fine, and there's nothing else to that. So she goes after the leg, and of course, everybody goes after the leg of the Beast now because, well, she had an ankle broken and she's going after that leg that was busted. That this is happening. But this does not take long. It's a little bit of time before we get the Beast using her immense strength and power to overcome Abilene Maverick. She is going for a pin, Maverick is. Beast shoves her off. Maverick tried to charge in and essentially catches her in what was known as a black hole slam. Now, that's a move that Abyss in TNA / Impact Wrestling, I guess TNA again. He made that famous. Catches her, charges in, spins her around, slams her down. Not the best version of it, but it's passable. It's, nothing worth like, oh, that's terrible. It wasn't that. It just wasn't as high up a slam as it probably could have been. So she gets that, and then we go in for the Beast Bomb. She just slings Maverick around, sets her up for her finish. That being the Beast Bomb. And, of course, she hits the Beast Bomb, nails her. Maverick doesn't have anything left in this short match. She gets powered down, and before you know it, Tormenta comes in and she busts it up. I'd put down Beast power bombs, Maverick, but Tormenta for some reason attacks the Beast. This is an attack without reason, and it is. It's just attack without rhyme or reason, and it only made me feel like, this is coming back around to my original pitch. All those months ago, you could have gotten to this without having to do something ridiculous, and it would have made sense. My pitch was when the Beast had her leg broken, and then they had to go into putting the hat on the hat, as I called it. Having somebody come behind her and break it again. Rather than to do that, I said, Tormenta was essentially the person that landed on her leg and popped her ankle. She should have just had Sophia Lopez go around claiming that, I put out the Beast. I stopped the unstoppable. I did what no one else in this company could do, or she did what no one else in this company could do. She put the Beast on the shelf. No one can say that except for my Tormenta. That's what should have happened rather than Tormenta going in there and losing nonstop. Like, why would I care about Tormenta versus the Beast? She couldn't beat anyone else on this roster. So why would I care about her versus the Beast when it's almost certainly 99% certain that she is going to go into that match and she's going to lose? Because she always loses. There's nothing to that. It would have taken a more logical turn if Sophia Lopez was doing that, hyping Tormenta up as the one that put the Beast on the shelf. The Beast comes back. She has a match with Tormenta, let's say, leading into number one contendership, and the Beast beats her. And now you have this match, and Tormenta would want revenge. I'm going to come in. If I can't win the championship, you can't either. So she just come in and stop it. And you're going to give me another rematch, and we'll really find out who's best in whatever stipulation happens to be. That would have felt more a logical progression in my view. Here is just a random attack. Is this going to tie into the flash drive? Is this going to tie into the championship challenge match? Is this going to tie into anything at all? Who knows? Who knows? I hope it does so I can be wrong. There's a lot of times when I review this show that I want to be wrong. I want them to prove me wrong, but it just doesn't happen. So we got that going on. And I guess it is now the Beast versus Tormenta in, some future match. The Beast won this match, by the way. She wins by disqualification. And that's the show. Oh, yes. And they advertised next week, fans, the Mighty Mites are going to be in action. And I wrote, who the hell are they? I love how Dave McClain says that like we're just supposed to be like, the Mighty Mites, well, hell, I need to tune in. But who are the Mighty Mites? I've seen the pictures, and I theoretically I know who they are, but you get what I'm going with this. Like, for the average fan and the average person that's watching the show, who are the Mighty Mites, and why am I getting excited for them? They haven't had any preceding vignettes. They haven't had any matches that have been shown like, hey, we're bringing these two people in. Let's show a match from them wrestling in Texas. There's nothing that is hyping them other than the fact that they have a graphic on the screen and Dave McClain say, yeah, next week is the Mighty Mites. It's going to be insane, fans. How do you tell them apart? They're twins or whatever, Things like that. Things like that is what makes me feel like, wow, either needs a complete repackaging or they need to figure out how to make this thing work a little better. Because it ain't working all that well, in my view. It just provides content at times, and this is one of those times. It's just content over the air to make sure that we got a show to run. And if that's how they get paid, then they probably should. Just make sure you crank out a show. And that's what this felt like. It just felt like that. I got to make sure I crank out a show. And they did. That was the entirety of the episode. The recap. This episode felt a lot less about the match or the matches and more about the things around it. None of the matches, you could argue the main event had something behind it, but none of these matches had anything behind it. Exodus versus Kandi Krush, Fury versus Aussie, which one? Miami Sweet Heat versus Tiki Chamorro and Chella. Most of those matches had nothing behind it. They had no lead in for it, and it didn't go anywhere, and it didn't start up a new angle or anything along those lines. These were just matches. That's all they were. Now, could they have been entertaining? Sure. I'm sure there's somebody out there listening to this right now like, I enjoyed those matches. And you should enjoy the matches. But the show did not have what it needed. That is the real flaw here. That the show didn't have what it needed. The matches, the matches were fine. for what they were. They were fine. But this show was a lot less about those matches and more about the things that took place around the match. The introduction of Trios Championship. The breaking up of Jessie Jones and Americana. Amber O'Neal coming back. Princess Aussie crying about the championship and the commentators feeding into that through other various points of the show. That's what this show felt like it was about. It wasn't about anything else other than that. Even the main event didn't feel like it was some sort of main event. I knew that Abilene was not going to pin the Beast. I didn't know if she was going to win or lose, but I didn't feel like I said she can't pin the Beast unless there's going to be some like massive help from somebody else. But that didn't happen. It wasn't help. It was a convenient save for Abilene Maverick in the form of Tormenta. But that was it. That was the show, and that's how it came across to me. It's just a lot less about the matches and more about the things that went around it. I noted that one of the big cons is David McLean needs to stop talking while the talent is talking. They probably should not do many more Babyface versus Babyface matches. Can the match be fine? Yes, but there's really nothing to gain here. And there was, I questioned, I was like, is there no heel available? Because that's all it was for. It was just, you have to have Princess Aussie beat somebody. But that didn't take place either. And Zane, for better or worse, whether you like him or not, has a much stronger and less cartoony voice than Stephen Dickey, or David McLean for that matter. We will see if he returns again to continue on his commentating journey with the company. And that will do it. That is the entirety of the episode in full review. I was a little disappointed in this. Just a little bit. Not enough for me to say, oh, it's a D show or something like that, but it's like a C. It's just, and I get more of those than anything else. It's just a C. It's an average show. It doesn't really have anything spectacular behind it. It's just a show for the sake of a show. And that's it. That's all that we got out of this. So, that said, I am going to wrap this up because that is the entirety of the program, and I want to make sure that I tune in next week so I can see the new team, the Mighty Mites, and you can hear the excitement in my voice. And I'm sure you will tune in to watch it as well. So that being said, folks, let me make one other little observation. I'm going to give a few other notes about what's going on other than the Mighty Mites, because they're going to be taking on Last Call. Who else do they have on this upcoming episode here? And I'm sure that they've probably posted all these things as you're listening to it. Spoiler alert, Los Bandidos gets a title match against the Tonga Twins. How did this occur? How did this occur? Why did this occur? We'll find out over the weekend. And Katrina Jinx and Gambino, not sure who's supposed to be I thought Katrina Jinx was supposed to be a heel here, but we know Gambino's a heel. Why are they facing each other? This comes off pretty much like Fury and Aussie to me. We just have to have a match to build a match. And Goldie Collins and Campanelli taking on each other. I don't dislike Campanelli, I'm no fan of Goldie Collins, but I will say just for Campanelli's sake, I'd like to see Collins win. I doubt it's going to happen, but I would like to see it. Just because. So back to what we were saying to wrap this on up. Folks, thank you for tuning in to this podcast. I certainly appreciate it. If you are so inclined, feel free to subscribe, share, and like the videos. If you are listening to this podcast in audio format, you can send messages through our website, because I will actually see it there. You can go and hit the contact us, and it will send you to the contact page, so I can read what it is. Or you can leave a comment in these videos comment sections. I read those. It'll oh, I think I need to take a drinker. Look, I almost made it through the show without having to do it too much, but I had to get another one. But anyway, you can do all those things to support the program. Like, share, subscribe, leave your comments. You can go onto our website, WPNWrestling.com, and you can see the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week broadcast of all things that have been done for the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. To say nothing else, you will be able to get all podcasts. There's a podcast list. Every upload goes there. It's all in order. So if you miss one, you can kind of scroll through there and you can find it. It's like I said, we got the little podcast widget. We got the video widget there that does the 24/7 broadcast. And of course, that is the focal point. That is the nexus. That is the centerpiece of everything that the WPN does. So if you are not sure about where and how to catch or find our stuff, then that's the safest place to go. WPNWrestling.com. WPNWrestling.com. And on that note, as I say again, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we will see you on the next go round. Take care, everybody. Happy holidays.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.